Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. Manhattan, New York. Emily Harper never thought a 3-second lie would destroy her life. Or save it. Sorry. I can't go out with you because… Darn it, darn it, darn it. Ryan Mitchell's predatory stare pinned her against the corporate elevator wall. Emily desperately watched the numbers climb. 15, 16, 17, because I'm married. The doors opened on the 18th floor, the executive level, and there he was, Nathan Sterling, CEO of the largest tech empire on the East Coast, eyes like midnight that seemed to see straight through people's souls, a suit that cost more than Emily's annual salary, and right now, looking directly at her with one eyebrow raised in pure curiosity, Emily. His voice was like aged bourbon, smooth, but it burned going down. I didn't know you'd gotten married. Her heart plummeted to her feet. Nathan Sterling knew her name. How the heck does he know my name? Ryan cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable in the CEO's presence. Oh, Mr. Sterling, I didn't realize you two knew each other. We know each other very well. Nathan stepped into the elevator, his large, elegant hands adjusting his cufflinks. In fact, Emily and I are. He paused for what felt like an eternity, his eyes meeting hers. There was something there. Amusement, challenge, intimate. Intimate. Emily choked on her own breath. Actually, Nathan continued, ignoring Emily's expression of total panic, today's our wedding anniversary, isn't it, darling? The elevator fell into absolute silence. Ryan looked back and forth between them like he was watching a tennis match. Emily felt like she might faint, throw up, or both. Nathan took a step toward her, so close she could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her knees weak. You forgot, sweetheart. That's disappointing. He tilted his head, his lips almost touching her ear. You're going to have to make it up to me. The elevator dinged at the 20th floor. Nathan's floor. Coming, Mrs. Sterling? He extended his hand to her. Those midnight dark eyes holding hers captive. Emily's brain short-circuited. She could either stay in this elevator with Ryan, who now looked like he'd seen a ghost, or follow the most powerful man in New York into what was probably her professional suicide. She took Nathan's hand. The moment their skin touched, electricity shot up her arm. His fingers were warm, strong, and surprisingly gentle as they closed around hers. Have a good day, Mitchell, Nathan said without looking back as the elevator doors closed on Ryan's stunned face. They were alone now, walking down the hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Emily's heels clicked against the marble floor like a countdown to her doom. So, Nathan said casually, as if they were discussing the weather, how long have we been married? This is insane, Emily whispered. You don't even know me. I know you're Emily Harper, 26. Graduated summa cum laude from NYU, with a degree in computer science. You've been working in our cybersecurity department for 8 months. You drink your coffee black, you stay late every night, and you've single-handedly prevented 3 major security breaches that could have cost us millions. Emily stopped walking. How do you? I make it my business to know my best employees. He stopped too, turning to face her. The question is, Emily, what's it worth to you to keep this lie going? Her mouth went dry. What do you mean? Nathan smiled, a slow, dangerous curve of his lips that made her stomach flip. Ryan Mitchell has been harassing half the women in this building for 2 years. HR won't touch him because his uncle sits on the board, but a married woman, especially one married to me, he shrugged, elegantly. Untouchable. And what do you get out of this? My grandmother's been threatening to set me up with every eligible socialite in the city. If I'm married, he trailed off. But the implication was clear. Emily stared at him. This is crazy. This is professional suicide. This is 1 month, Nathan said. The company gala is in 4 weeks. We make one public appearance as a married couple, establish the story, and then we have a very quiet, very mutual divorce. You get protection from Mitchell. I get peace from my family. And everyone wins. This is insane. Probably. His eyes softened just slightly. But you took my hand anyway. She had, without thinking, without hesitation, she trusted him, and standing here now, looking into those midnight dark eyes, she realized she was about to do something even crazier. What exactly would we have to do? Nathan's smile widened. Well, for starters, he stepped closer. backing her against the window. The city sprawled out below them, millions of people living their normal, non-insane lives. We'd have to be convincing. Convincing how? Instead of answering, he reached up and tucked a strand of her blonde hair behind her ear. The simple gesture sent shivers down her spine. The gala is black tie. You'll need a dress. I can't afford. You're married to a billionaire now, Emily. Start acting like it. The hallway suddenly felt very small, very warm. This is completely crazy. The best things usually are. His thumb brushed along her cheek, and she forgot how to breathe. So, Mrs. Sterling, what do you say? Emily looked into his eyes and saw her reflection, wide-eyed, terrified, but somehow excited. For once, in her careful, planned-out life, she was about to do something completely reckless. 1 month, she whispered. 1 month, he agreed. Neither of them moved. The space between them crackled with tension, with possibility, with the weight of a lie that was about to change everything. Nathan, she said softly. Yes? What happens if people don't believe us? His smile turned predatory. Then we'll just have to be more convincing, won't we? And as Emily stood there, trapped between Nathan Sterling and the window overlooking all of Manhattan, she realized she'd just agreed to the most dangerous game of her life. Manhattan, New York. The next morning, Emily Harper stood outside the most exclusive boutique on Fifth Avenue, clutching a credit card that wasn't hers and questioning every life decision that had led to this moment. Mrs. Sterling, the boutique manager, a razor-sharp woman named Claire, practically glided toward her. Mr. Sterling called ahead. We have everything ready for you. Mrs. Sterling. The name still made her stomach do weird flips. 24 hours ago, she'd been Emily Harper, invisible cybersecurity analyst who ate ramen for dinner and wore the same 3 blazers to work in rotation. Now, apparently, she was Mrs. Nathan Sterling, wife to Manhattan's most eligible bachelor, about to spend more money on one dress than she'd ever spent on, well, anything. I'm not sure about this, Emily mumbled as Claire led her toward a private fitting room lined with mirrors and draped in silk. Nonsense. When Mr. Sterling described you, I knew exactly what would be perfect. Claire's eyes sparkled with the kind of enthusiasm that usually meant someone was about to spend a fortune. He said, and I quote, "She's beautiful but doesn't know it. Find something that will make her feel as stunning as she already is." Emily's cheeks flushed. He said that? Very romantic. How long have you been married? Oh, it's complicated. Try explaining that one, Emily. Before Claire could ask more questions, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hope you're behaving yourself, Mrs. S. Board meeting ran long. Dinner tonight at 7 to discuss our arrangement. I'll pick you up. Her heart did that annoying flutter thing again. How had he even gotten her number? Another text appeared immediately. Nathan. And yes, I have my ways of finding information. It's what I do. Wear the blue dress. Emily looked around the fitting room. There were at least 20 dresses hanging there in every color imaginable. Which blue dress? She texted back. Nathan. You'll know. Cryptic much? She muttered. Did you say something, dear? Claire appeared with an armful of evening gowns. Nothing. Just my husband being mysterious. Oh, they love that, don't they? My Henry thinks he's being romantic when he leaves me vague notes about dinner plans. Claire held up a stunning navy dress that looked like liquid silk. This one first. The moment Emily saw it, she knew. The blue dress. It was elegant, but not pretentious. Sophisticated, but not trying too hard. Exactly the kind of thing that would make her fit into Nathan's world without losing herself completely. 2 hours later, Emily emerged from the boutique looking like someone she didn't recognize. The dress fit perfectly, and Claire had insisted on shoes, a clutch, and what she called proper undergarments for a woman in your position. Your position? As if being fake married to Nathan Sterling was an actual job title. Meanwhile, across town in the glass tower that housed Sterling Industries, Nathan was having his own crisis of confidence. You did what? His best friend and CFO, Lucas Bennett, stared at him like he'd announced plans to move to Mars. Nathan, please tell me you're joking. It's a temporary arrangement, Nathan said, straightening his tie for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. Why was he nervous? This was just business. A mutually beneficial agreement between 2 adults. 1 month. Everyone gets what they want. Everyone except you, apparently, because you've lost your mind. Lucas slumped in his chair. Do you have any idea how complicated this is going to get? What happens when your grandmother wants to meet her? What happens when the press gets wind of this? What happens? Lucas. Nathan's voice carried that commanding tone that ended arguments in boardrooms across the city. It's handled. Famous last words. Lucas shook his head. I've known you since Harvard, man. You don't do anything without 17 backup plans and a risk assessment report. This is completely unlike you. Nathan turned to look out his office window toward the bustling street below, where normal people lived. Normal, uncomplicated lives. Maybe that's the problem. What do you mean? When's the last time I did something spontaneous? Something that wasn't calculated and analyzed and approved by committee? Nathan's reflection stared back at him from the window. Yesterday, I watched Ryan Mitchell corner Emily in that elevator, and for the first time in years, I acted on instinct, and now I'm having dinner with the most interesting woman I've met in years, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Lucas was quiet for a moment. She's different, isn't she? What makes you say that? Because you've been checking your phone every 5 minutes since yesterday, and you just spent 20 minutes describing the exact shade of blue you wanted her dress to be to some boutique manager. Nathan turned back to face his friend. It's not like that. Lucas grinned. What's she like? I mean, beyond the whole cybersecurity genius thing, she's... Nathan paused, trying to find words for something he didn't quite understand himself. She looked terrified yesterday, but she took my hand anyway, and when I made that crack about being intimate, she turned 3 shades of red, but didn't back down. She's brave without knowing it, and beautiful. Beautiful doesn't even begin to cover it. The words came out before Nathan could stop them. She has these eyes that... Lucas. She looked at me like I was just a person. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the sterling heir, just me. Oh boy. Lucas leaned back in his chair. You're already in trouble, aren't you? Nathan's phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Claire is terrifying, but efficient. Mission accomplished. Fair warning. You owe me an explanation for how you knew my phone number, my dress size, and my coffee preferences. He found himself smiling as he typed back, Nathan. I told you I make it my business to know my best employees. Emily, I'm not your employee anymore. I'm your wife. Remember? The word wife on his phone screen did something weird to his chest. Nathan. How could I forget? See you at 7, Mrs. Sterling. Yep, Lucas said, watching Nathan's expression. You're definitely in trouble. At exactly 7 p.m., Emily stood in her tiny studio apartment, wearing a dress that cost more than her monthly rent, waiting for her fake husband to pick her up for their first official fake date. The knock on her door came precisely on time. She opened it to find Nathan Sterling looking like he'd stepped off the cover of GQ magazine. Dark suit, perfectly styled hair, and those midnight eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed composure. You wore the blue dress, he said softly. You were right. I knew. She grabbed her new clutch, trying to ignore how her hands were shaking slightly. So, where are we going for this business dinner? Le Bernardin. Emily nearly dropped her purse. Le Bernardin? Nathan, I can't afford. You're not paying. I am. And technically, neither of us are paying because the restaurant comps meals for me. He offered her his arm. Perks of the billionaire lifestyle, right? The lifestyle I'm supposed to be accustomed to now. She took his arm, trying not to notice how solid and warm he felt beneath the expensive fabric. This is going to be harder than I thought. What is? Pretending to be someone I'm not. Nathan stopped walking and turned to face her fully. Emily, listen to me. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're just letting people see who you already are. A cybersecurity analyst who shops at Target and considers takeout Chinese food a fancy dinner. A brilliant woman who single-handedly saved my company millions of dollars, who has more integrity in her little finger than most people have in their entire bodies, and who looks absolutely stunning in blue. His thumb brushed across her knuckles where her hand rested on his arm. Don't change who you are, Emily. The world needs more real people, not fewer. She stared up at him. Something dangerous and warm, unfurling in her chest. How do you do that? Do what? Make me forget this is all pretend. For a moment, something shifted in his expression, something real and unguarded that made her breath catch. Maybe, he said quietly. That's because it doesn't feel like pretending. The air between them crackled with tension, with possibility, with all the things they weren't saying. Emily found herself leaning slightly closer, her eyes dropping to his lips, and then her phone rang. Him. Her best friend Lauren's voice shrieked through the speaker as Emily fumbled to answer. Did you see page 6? There's a photo of you and some gorgeous guy. and the caption says you're married. What the actual... Lauren, I can explain. You're married and you didn't tell me. Your best friend since college. I had to find out from a gossip website. Emily looked at Nathan, who was trying very hard not to laugh. It's complicated. Complicated. Honey, you got married? There's nothing complicated about that. Who is he? Where did you meet? When's the reception? I have questions. Lauren, I'll call you later, okay? I'm kind of in the middle of... You're with him right now, aren't you? Put him on the phone. Absolutely not. Emily Harper, don't you dare hang up on me. I want to meet the man who finally managed to. Emily ended the call and looked up at Nathan, who was now openly grinning. Friend of yours? He asked innocently. My best friend, who apparently reads gossip blogs and has zero filter. Emily shook her head. This is going to be interesting. Mrs. Sterling, Nathan said, offering his arm again. You have no idea. As they walked toward his car, a sleek black Tesla that probably cost more than her college education, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. This was supposed to be business, a simple arrangement between two people who barely knew each other. So why did it already feel like so much more? Le Bernardin, Manhattan, Friday evening. The moment they walked into Le Bernardin, Emily realized she was completely out of her league. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in pristine white linens. The soft murmur of conversation mixed with the gentle clink of silverware against fine china. Every person in the restaurant looked like they belonged on the cover of Forbes or Vogue, and every single one of them turned to stare as Nathan guided her through the dining room. Is it always like this? Emily whispered, acutely aware of the weight of their gazes, the staring. Nathan's hand settled on the small of her back, warm and steadying. You'll get used to it. I don't think I want to get used to it, Mr. Sterling. The maitre d' appeared instantly, all smiles and obsequious charm. Your usual table is ready, and may I say congratulations on your recent marriage. The entire staff is delighted to finally meet your wife. Emily's stomach dropped. Your usual table? I eat here twice a week. Nathan murmured in her ear, as they followed the maitre d', a prime table overlooking the Hudson River. It's where I bring all my important business associates. So, this is business? She asked, trying to ignore how his breath against her ear made her shiver. Everything's business, Emily. The question is, what kind of business we're conducting? They were seated at a corner table with enough privacy to talk, but enough visibility to be seen. Emily was beginning to understand that everything in Nathan's world was calculated, strategic, even their fake marriage. Wine? The sommelier appeared at their table before they'd even settled into their chairs. The usual Mr. Sterling? Actually, Nathan glanced at Emily. What do you prefer? Red? White? I don't really know much about wine. Emily felt heat creep up her neck. I usually just drink whatever's on sale at the corner store. The sommelier's expression didn't change, but Emily caught the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. She was definitely not fitting in. Bring us the 2018 Sancerre, Nathan said smoothly. Something light and crisp, perfect for someone just discovering what she likes. The way he said it, without condescension, without making her feel small, made something warm unfold in Emily's chest. So, she said once they were alone, business dinner? What exactly are we discussing? Rules. Nathan leaned back in his chair, looking completely at ease in surroundings that made Emily feel like an imposter. If we're going to make this work, we need boundaries. Okay, Emily nodded, grateful to be talking about something concrete. That makes sense. First rule, in public, we're completely convincing, affectionate, but not over the top. We know each other well. We're comfortable together. We're clearly in love. In love? Emily's voice came out higher than intended. It's what people expect from newlyweds. Nathan's eyes met hers across the table. Can you handle that? Emily thought about the moment outside her apartment, when she'd almost kissed him. I think so. Second rule, in private, we maintain professional boundaries. This is a business arrangement. We don't blur those lines. Something about the way he said it, firm, definitive, made her feel oddly disappointed. Of course. Professional. Third rule, we tell no one the truth. Not friends, not family, not anyone. The story is that we met, fell hard and fast, and eloped because we couldn't wait. People are going to want details. Then we better get our story straight. Nathan pulled out his phone and opened what looked like a notes app. When did we meet? I've been working at your company for 8 months. Too complicated. Too many people who would know that's not when we started dating. Nathan thought for a moment. Coffee shop. 3 months ago. You were in line ahead of me at that place on 47th Street, the one near the office. Perfect. You ordered a black coffee. No sugar. I thought it was unusual. Most people load their coffee with cream and sweeteners. I made a comment. You laughed. We started talking. Emily found herself leaning forward, caught up in the story. What did you say? The comment. I said you must be brave drinking coffee like that. Most people are afraid of bitter things. And what did I say back? You said the best things in life are a little bitter. Wine, chocolate, good coffee. People who are worth knowing usually have some edge to them. Emily stared at him. You just made that up, did I? His smile was enigmatic. How do we know we didn't have exactly that conversation? Before Emily could respond, the sommelier returned with their wine. Nathan went through the ritual of tasting and approving, then watched as Emily took her first sip. What do you think? Emily paused, considering. It's like drinking sunshine, but with a bite to it. Good description. Nathan raised his glass. To our whirlwind romance. Emily clinked her glass against his, trying to ignore how the simple toast made her stomach flutter. So, what happened after the coffee shop? We started meeting there every morning, just casual conversation at first, but it became the best part of my day. After 2 weeks, I asked you to dinner. Where? Nowhere fancy. A little Italian place in the village. You wore a green dress and kept fidgeting with your necklace when you were nervous. Emily's hand automatically went to the simple silver chain at her throat, the same one she wore every day. How did you? Lucky guess, but something in his eyes suggested it wasn't luck at all. The point is, we connected, really connected, not because of money or status or business deals, but because we understood each other, and then I fell in love with you. He said it so simply, so matter-of-factly, that for a moment Emily forgot they were making it up. Head over heels, completely, ridiculously in love. The kind of love that makes smart people do stupid things. Like elope? Like elope. Nathan nodded. Vegas, 2 weeks ago. Spur-of-the-moment decision after I got the flu and you came over to take care of me. I was lying there thinking about how you brought me soup and argued with me about taking medicine, and I realized I wanted to wake up next to you every day for the rest of my life. Emily's throat felt tight. That's actually really romantic. I have my moments. Nathan, a woman's voice interrupted them, sharp and surprised. Nathan Sterling, is that really you? Emily looked up to see a stunning blonde woman approaching their table. She was everything Emily wasn't. Tall, polished, dripping with jewelry that probably cost more than Emily's car. Her smile was perfectly white and completely predatory. Sophia. Nathan's voice was polite, but cool. What a surprise. I'll say, when I heard rumors that you'd gotten married, I simply couldn't believe it. Sophia's eyes moved to Emily with the kind of assessment that made Emily want to hide under the table. You must be the mysterious bride. Emily, Nathan said smoothly, this is Sophia Langley. Sophia, my wife, Emily Sterling. Wife. The word hit Emily like a physical impact. How unexpected. Sophia's smile didn't reach her eyes. I don't think we've met before. What do you do, Emily? Before Emily could answer, Nathan's hand covered hers on the table. Emily works in cybersecurity. She's brilliant. Probably the smartest person I know. How wonderful, Sophia said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. And where did you two meet? I'm simply dying to hear the story. Emily felt panic start to rise in her throat. This was it. Their first real test, and she was about to blow it completely. Coffee shop, she managed to say. 3 months ago. Really? Which one? The one on 47th Street, Nathan said, his thumb tracing reassuring circles on Emily's hand. Emily was ahead of me in line, ordering black coffee, no sugar, no cream. I thought it showed character. Character? Sophia laughed, a sound like breaking glass. How quaint, I told her, Emily said, finding her voice, that the best things in life are a little bitter. Good coffee, dark chocolate. She looked directly at Sophia. People worth knowing. Nathan's fingers tightened around hers, and when she glanced at him, there was something like pride in his expression. Well, Sophia said, her smile becoming even more strained. How romantic. I suppose when you know, though I have to say, Nathan, It's quite unlike you to be so impulsive. Emily brings out my spontaneous side, Nathan said, lifting their joined hands to press a soft kiss to Emily's knuckles. Love will do that to a man. The gesture was so gentle, so intimate, that Emily forgot for a moment they were performing. Her breath caught, and she saw Nathan's eyes darken as he looked at her. Yes, well, Sophia said sharply, clearly recognizing that she was losing whatever game she'd been trying to play. I should let you get back to your dinner. Congratulations on your surprise wedding. Thank you, Emily said, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. It was lovely meeting you. Sophia swept away in a cloud of expensive perfume and barely contained irritation. Who was that? Emily asked once she was gone. Old family friend. Well, her family and my family have been friends for generations. Sophia and I dated briefly a few years ago. Dated? Or my grandmother's been trying to match us up since we were teenagers. Sophia's been under the impression that it was inevitable we'd end up together. Ah, Emily nodded. And now you're married to someone she's never heard of. Now I'm married to someone real. Nathan still hadn't let go of her hand. You did well. The thing about bitter things being worth it, that was perfect. It felt true. Emily realized she was staring at their joined hands. The whole story felt true. Maybe that's what makes it believable. Their appetizers arrived, providing a welcome distraction from the intensity that seemed to build every time they looked at each other. But as Emily took a bite of the most incredible seafood she'd ever tasted, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted during their encounter with Sophia. They'd passed their first test. They'd been convincing as a couple in love. The problem was, Emily was starting to worry that she wasn't acting anymore. So, she said, desperate to break the tension, what other rules do we need to establish? Living arrangements, Nathan said immediately. People will expect us to live together. Emily's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Live together? My penthouse has 4 bedrooms. You'd have your own space, complete privacy. But we need to maintain the appearance that we share a home. What about my apartment? Keep it if you want, but officially you live with me. Emily tried to imagine waking up every morning in Nathan Sterling's penthouse, sharing breakfast with him, seeing him in casual clothes, maybe fresh out of the shower. That's very generous, she managed. It's practical, but something in his voice suggested it was more than that. There's something else we need to discuss. What? Physical affection? Nathan's voice was carefully neutral. People will expect us to touch each other, hold hands, casual kisses, the kinds of things married couples do without thinking. Oh, Emily's cheeks heated. Right. Of course. Are you comfortable with that? Emily thought about how her skin had tingled when he'd kissed her hand, how her pulse had jumped when he tucked her hair behind her ear. I think so. We should probably practice. Practice kissing? Nathan said bluntly. If we're going to be convincing, we need to be comfortable with each other. Emily's wineglass was suddenly very interesting. That makes sense. Logically. Emily. His voice was soft. And when she looked up, his expression was serious. If this makes you uncomfortable, we can find another way. I don't want you to feel pressured into anything. I'm not pressured, she said quickly. It's just, I don't exactly have a lot of experience with fake relationships. Neither do I. Really? You seem like you'd be good at it. Why? Because you're good at everything else. The words came out more honestly than she'd intended. Running companies, charming people, making everyone around you feel like they matter. It's like you have this superpower. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. You want to know what my superpower really is? What? I'm very good at making people see what I want them to see. The confident CEO, the charming billionaire, the man who has everything figured out. He traced the rim of his wineglass with one finger. But you see through all that, don't you? What do you mean? In the elevator yesterday, when you looked at me, you didn't see the CEO, or the money, or the reputation. You saw someone who was willing to help you, and you trusted me. No one trusts me that quickly. Emily, most people want something from me. What do I want from you? Protection from Ryan, a solution to a problem. But beyond that, Nathan met her eyes. I have no idea, and that terrifies me. The honesty in his voice made Emily's chest tight. Why does it terrify you? Because I like the way you look at me. And this is supposed to be fake. The words hung between them like a challenge, like a confession, like a warning, all rolled into one. Nathan, Dessert, their waiter appeared with perfect timing, breaking the spell that had wrapped around their table. Just the check, please, Nathan said without looking away from Emily. As they waited for the bill, Emily tried to process everything that had happened. The story they'd created, the way they'd handled Sophia, the admission that had just passed between them, it felt like they'd crossed multiple lines in the space of one dinner. "Ready to go home?" Nathan asked once he'd signed the check. "Home?" Emily repeated. "My place? Our place, I should say. Might as well start the living arrangement tonight." Emily's heart started beating faster. "Tonight?" "Unless you'd prefer to wait. But Sophia Langley is probably already on the phone with half of Manhattan, spreading the news that Nathan Sterling's mysterious wife exists, and they've met her. By tomorrow morning, there will probably be photographers outside your apartment building." The reality of what she'd agreed to hit Emily like a cold wave. This wasn't just about pretending to be married at fancy dinners. This was about living a completely different life in the public eye, with no privacy and no escape. "Hey." Nathan's voice was gentle. "Having second thoughts?" Emily looked across the table at him. This man who was offering her protection, luxury, and a month of living in a world she'd never imagined. A man who looked at her like she mattered, like she was worth protecting, like she was brave for taking his hand in an elevator. "No," she said firmly. "No second thoughts. But I'm going to need some ground rules of my own, such as no more saying things that sound real when they're supposed to be fake. It's confusing." Nathan's smile was slow and dangerous. "I'll try to remember that. And no more looking at me like..." "Like what?" "Like you mean it, Emily." Nathan stood and offered her his arm. "What if I do mean it?" As they walked out of Le Bernardin together, Emily realized that her fake marriage was about to become the most real thing in her life, and she had no idea what she was going to do about that. Sterling Penthouse, Upper East Side. Saturday morning, Emily Harper woke up in a bed that cost more than her yearly salary, in a room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, with absolutely no idea where she was for the first terrifying moment of consciousness. Then it all came flooding back. The elevator, the lie, the fake marriage proposal, Le Bernardin, Sophia Langley's calculating smile, and Nathan's devastating question as they'd left the restaurant. "What if I do mean it?" She sat up slowly, taking in her surroundings in the pale morning light. The guest bedroom was larger than her entire studio apartment, decorated in soft grays and whites that probably had fancy names like Dove and Cream. There was a sitting area with a chaise lounge, a walk-in closet that was currently empty, except for the blue dress she'd worn last night, and French doors that led to what looked like a private balcony. This was insane, all of it. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. 17 missed calls from Lauren, 43 text messages, and 6 voicemails. Emily scrolled through the texts with growing dread. "Emily Harper, answer your phone." "Lauren, I Googled him." "Holy freaking cheese crackers." Lauren, "He's worth how much?" Lauren, I swear if you don't call me back, I'm staging an intervention." Lauren, "Found his address. I'm coming over." Lauren, "What? Which apartment? The penthouse or your place?" Lauren, "Oh my God, you're living in the penthouse, aren't you?" The messages continued in that vein for what looked like hours. Emily was contemplating hiding in the closet for the rest of her life when she heard voices from somewhere in the apartment. Malvoises. Multiple malvoises. One of them was definitely Nathan. Emily grabbed the plush white robe hanging in the bathroom. Even the bathroom was larger than her bedroom at home, and crept toward the door. She could hear the conversation more clearly now, coming from what sounded like the kitchen. "Completely lost your mind." That was a voice she didn't recognize. "Nathan, this is career suicide. It's a temporary arrangement, Lucas." Nathan's voice was calm, controlled. "Everything is under control." "Under control?" "The Wall Street Journal is running a piece on Monday about your secret marriage. The Times wants an interview. Your grandmother called me at 6 this morning, demanding to know why she heard about your wedding from Sophia Langley instead of from you. And don't even get me started on what the board is going to say." Emily's stomach dropped. The board. She hadn't even thought about how this would affect Nathan's business. "The board will be fine," Nathan said. "If anything, being married makes me look more stable, more committed, to a woman none of them have ever heard of. Nathan, they're going to do background checks. They're going to want to meet her, interview her, make sure she's not some corporate spy or gold digger or she's none of those things. How do you know? You barely know her yourself." There was a pause, and when Nathan spoke again, his voice was quieter. "I know enough to risk everything? Your reputation, your company, your future." Emily pressed her ear closer to the door, hating herself for eavesdropping, but unable to stop. "Lucas, I've spent my entire adult life making safe choices, calculated decisions, following the plan that was laid out for me before I was old enough to have opinions about my own life. Nathan's voice carried a note of frustration she'd never heard before. When's the last time I did something because I wanted to, not because it was expected or profitable or strategically sound? That's exactly my point. This isn't like you. Maybe that's the problem. Emily heard footsteps, the sound of a coffee maker, the clink of dishes, normal morning sounds that felt surreal in the context of her completely abnormal situation. Look, Lucas said, and his voice was gentler now. I get it. The pressure from your family, the expectations, the endless parade of suitable women your grandmother keeps throwing at you. But Nathan, a fake marriage. There have to be better solutions. Like what? Actually marrying one of them? Spending the rest of my life with someone who sees me as a business merger instead of a person? What makes you think this Emily is different? Another pause. Emily held her breath, because she had 17 opportunities to ask me for money last night, and it never even occurred to her, because she looked terrified at Le Bernardin but held her own with Sophia Langley, because when I told her the rules of our arrangement, she made rules of her own. Nathan's voice was warm now, almost fond. She's not impressed by the money or the status, Lucas. She's just real. Emily felt something warm and dangerous unfold in her chest. And what happens when the month is over, Lucas asked. What happens when you have to let this real, genuine woman walk away? The silence stretched long enough that Emily wondered if they'd moved to another room. Then Nathan spoke, so quietly she almost missed it. I don't know. Emily stepped back from the door, her heart racing. She needed coffee. She needed to think. And she needed to stop listening to conversations that made her feel things she had no business feeling. She was fake married to Nathan Sterling for exactly 26 more days. Getting emotionally involved would be the stupidest thing she could possibly do, which was, of course, exactly what was happening. A soft knock on her door interrupted her spiral of panic. Emily, are you awake? Nathan's voice, muffled through the door. Just a minute. Emily looked down at the robe, then at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was a disaster. She had no makeup on, and she was wearing what was essentially a very expensive bathrobe. This was definitely not how fake wives were supposed to look in the morning, but it was too late to do anything about it. She opened the door to find Nathan standing in the hallway, holding 2 cups of coffee. He was wearing jeans and a gray sweater that made his eyes look like storm clouds, and his hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked impossibly handsome and completely approachable at the same time, which was hardly fair. Good morning, Mrs. Sterling, he said with a slight smile. How did you sleep? Like I was in a hotel, Emily said honestly. Everything's too nice. I was afraid to move in case I broke something. You can't break anything in there that can't be replaced. He offered her one of the coffee cups. Black. No sugar. How did you? Emily started, then stopped. Right. You make it your business to know things. Actually, I remembered from yesterday when you told the sommelier you usually drink whatever's on sale at the corner store. Nathan's expression was unreadable. This is better coffee. Emily took a sip and nearly groaned with pleasure. It was perfect, rich, and smooth, and probably more expensive per pound than her car payment. This is definitely better coffee. I have to warn you, Nathan said. Lucas is in the kitchen, and he's got opinions about our situation. I heard some of it, Emily admitted. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but voices carry, and I was trying to figure out if it was safe to come out. What did you hear? Enough to know that I'm causing problems for you. Emily wrapped her hands around the warm coffee mug, the board, the media attention, your grandmother. Nathan, maybe we should call this off before it gets worse. No. His response was immediate and firm. Emily, look at me. She met his eyes, trying to ignore how the morning light made them look even more intense. I knew there would be complications when I made this offer. I chose to do it anyway. The question is whether you're having second thoughts. I don't know, Emily said honestly. This is all so far outside my experience. Last week, my biggest worry was whether I could afford to get my car fixed. Now, I'm supposed to be the wife of one of the most powerful men in New York, and I have no idea how to do that. You don't have to become someone different, Emily. You just have to be yourself. Myself in a world where people like Sophia Langley are going to be analyzing my every move, where reporters want interviews, where your business associates are going to be wondering if I'm worthy of you. Emily shook her head. I'm going to mess this up, Nathan. When I do, it's going to hurt you. Hey. Nathan stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. You handled Sophia perfectly last night. You were confident, charming, and completely believable. If anything, I'm the one who's going to mess this up. How could you possibly mess this up? You're perfect at everything." "I'm perfect at business, Emily." "This isn't business." His thumb brushed across her cheek, and she realized she'd been holding her breath. "This is something else entirely." The hallway suddenly felt very small, very warm. Emily was acutely aware that she was wearing nothing but a robe, that Nathan was close enough to kiss, that the way he was looking at her made her feel like the most important person in the world. Nathan Sterling, you better have coffee ready because I've been up all night, and I have questions." The voice came from the direction of the kitchen, followed by the sound of what Emily could only assume was Lucas trying to intercept whoever had just arrived. "Ma'am, you can't just—" "Don't ma'am me, young man. I'm 74 years old. I've been awake since 5 inches the morning, and I want to meet the girl who managed to get my grandson to the altar without telling me about it. Nathan." Emily looked at Nathan in panic. "Please tell me that's not—" "My grandmother," Nathan confirmed, looking resigned. "Margaret Sterling, also known as the most terrifying woman in New York society. What do I do? I can't meet your grandmother in a bathrobe." "Nathan James Sterling, get out here this instant." "She knows my middle name," Emily whispered in horror. "She knows everyone's middle name. It's one of her many talents." Nathan ran a hand through his hair. "Okay. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to get dressed. There are clothes in the closet. Claire sent them over this morning. I'm going to go deal with grandmother and try to buy you some time." "What clothes? What closet?" "The walk-in. Claire estimated your size yesterday and sent over some basics. Casual clothes, nothing too formal." Nathan was already backing away toward the kitchen. 5 minutes. "Emily, you can do this." "Nathan, wait." But he was gone, leaving Emily standing in the hallway in a bathrobe, holding a cup of perfect coffee and facing the prospect of meeting Margaret Sterling, a woman who could probably destroy her with a single raised eyebrow. Emily rushed back into the bedroom and threw open the closet doors. Inside, she found a carefully curated selection of clothes that probably cost more than her monthly salary. Jeans that looked like they'd been tailored specifically for her body, sweaters in colors that complemented her complexion, shoes that were both stylish and comfortable. Everything fit perfectly. Emily chose dark jeans, a soft cream sweater, and ankle boots, then spent 30 seconds in the bathroom trying to make her hair look presentable. She could hear voices from the kitchen, Nathan's calm tones, Lucas's nervous interjections, and a third voice that carried the kind of authority that came from decades of getting exactly what she wanted. "I don't care if she's sleeping, Nathan. It's nearly 10, and any woman worth marrying should be up by now." Margaret Sterling's voice carried clearly down the hallway. "I want to meet this mysterious bride of yours, and I want to meet her now. Grandmother, perhaps you could have called ahead. Called ahead to meet my own grandson's wife? The grandson who apparently got married in Las Vegas without inviting his family?" The temperature in Margaret's voice could have frozen champagne. "I think not." Emily took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked toward the kitchen. She could do this. She'd handled Ryan Mitchell. She'd survived dinner at Le Bernardin. She'd held her own with Sophia Langley. How hard could one 4-year-old woman be? She walked into the kitchen and immediately understood why Nathan looked nervous. Margaret Sterling was elegant in the way that only came from generations of breeding and billions of dollars. She was petite but commanding, with silver hair perfectly styled and sharp blue eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore a Chanel suit that probably cost more than Emily's car, and pearls that looked like they belonged in a museum. She was also staring directly at Emily, with the intensity of a hawk evaluating its prey. "Ah," Margaret said, her voice cool and appraising. "The mysterious Mrs. Sterling. Grandmother," Nathan said quickly. "This is Emily. Emily, my grandmother, Margaret Sterling." Emily stepped forward, grateful that her legs didn't shake. "Mrs. Sterling, it's wonderful to meet you. I've heard so much about you. I wish I could say the same." Margaret's smile was perfectly polite and absolutely terrifying. "Please, sit. We have much to discuss." Emily glanced at Nathan, who gave her an encouraging nod, then took a seat at the kitchen island. Margaret settled across from her with the precision of a general planning a battle strategy. "Coffee?" Lucas offered nervously, clearly hoping to break the tension. "I have coffee. Thank you." Margaret's eyes never left Emily's face. "Now then, dear, tell me about yourself. What do you do?" "I work in cybersecurity," Emily said, proud that her voice came out steady. "How interesting. And where did you go to school?" "NYU. And your family?" "What do they do?" Emily felt heat creep up her neck. "My parents both work for the Postal Service. They're very hard-working people." "I'm sure they are." Margaret's tone gave nothing away. And how exactly did you meet my grandson? This was it. Their first real test of the coffee shop story. We met at a coffee shop, Emily said, falling back on the story they'd rehearsed. About 3 months ago, I was in line ahead of Nathan, and he made a comment about my coffee order. What kind of comment? Emily looked at Nathan, who was leaning against the counter, trying to look casual and failing completely. He said I must be brave, drinking black coffee. Most people are afraid of bitter things. And what did you say to that? I told him that the best things in life are a little bitter. Good coffee, dark chocolate. Emily met Margaret's sharp gaze directly. People worth knowing. Something shifted in Margaret's expression. The tiniest softening around her eyes. How refreshingly honest. And then we started meeting there every morning, just to talk at first, but it became the best part of my day. And when did you know you were in love? The question hit Emily like a physical blow because, suddenly, sitting in Nathan's kitchen, looking into his grandmother's knowing eyes, Emily realized she could answer that question truthfully. It had been last night, in the hallway outside her bedroom, when Nathan had looked at her like she was the only person in the world who mattered. When he told her she didn't have to change, that the world needed more real people. When he'd admitted that she terrified him because she saw through all his carefully constructed masks. When he told me I was brave, Emily said softly, the words coming from somewhere deeper than conscious thought, not because of what I did or what I accomplished, but just because of who I am. The kitchen fell silent. Lucas was staring at Emily with something like amazement. Nathan had gone very still, his eyes locked on her face with an expression she couldn't read. Nathan, Margaret said finally. Yes, grandmother? You may keep this one. And then, for the first time since Emily had met her, Margaret Sterling smiled. A real, warm, genuinely pleased smile. Now then, Margaret continued briskly, we need to discuss the proper announcement of your marriage. I assume you have no intention of keeping it secret indefinitely. We were planning to make it public at the company gala, Nathan said, finally finding his voice. Absolutely not. The company gala is business, not family. We'll have a proper reception next weekend. Nothing too elaborate, just 200 of our closest friends. 200 people? Emily squeaked. It's quite intimate, really. I was thinking the ballroom at the plaza. Cocktails at 7, dinner at 8. Black tie, of course. Emily looked at Nathan in panic. A reception with 200 people. This was spiraling way beyond their simple 1-month arrangement. Grandmother, Nathan said carefully, that might be moving a little fast. Nonsense. The longer we wait, the more speculation there will be. Better to address it head-on with a proper celebration. Margaret stood, smoothing her skirt. I'll handle the arrangements. Emily, dear, we'll need to go shopping for your dress. Nothing off the rack, of course. I know several designers who owe me favors. Mrs. Sterling, that's very generous, but... Margaret, please. We're family now. Margaret's smile was warm but final. And family takes care of family. I'll have my assistant call you this afternoon to set up appointments. She gathered her purse and headed toward the door, then paused to look back at them. Oh, and Emily, next time you eavesdrop on a conversation, you might want to make sure the acoustics work both ways. I heard every word you said about being afraid to mess this up. Margaret's eyes twinkled with something that might have been mischief. For what it's worth, I don't think you have anything to worry about. And with that, she was gone, leaving Emily, Nathan, and Lucas staring after her in stunned silence. Well, Lucas said finally, that could have gone worse, could it? Emily turned to look at Nathan. Your grandmother just planned our reception. 200 people. Nathan, designers and ball gowns and the Plaza Hotel. This is getting completely out of hand. I know, Nathan said quietly. I'll call her. Explain that we want something smaller. No. Emily surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Your grandmother is already suspicious. I could see it in her eyes. If we back down now, if we don't follow through, she'll know something's wrong. Emily, you don't understand the kind of scrutiny that comes with an event like this. Every socialite in the city will be there, analyzing your every move. The press will probably try to get photos. It's going to be intense. Then you'll have to teach me. Emily met his eyes, seeing her own determination reflected back at her. You said I was brave, Nathan. Time to prove it. Nathan stared at her for a long moment, then walked over to where she was sitting. He reached out and took her hands in his thumbs tracing over her knuckles. You realize what you're agreeing to? He said softly. A week of preparation, dress fittings, probably media training, a night of performing for 200 people who will be looking for any sign that our marriage isn't real. I realize, and after that, 3 more weeks of being Mrs. Nathan Sterling in the most public way possible. I realize that too. Emily, his voice was rough, uncertain in a way she'd never heard before. What happens if, somewhere in all of this performing, one of us forgets we're acting? Emily looked into his storm-gray eyes and saw her own fears reflected back at her. The fear that this was already more real than either of them had intended. The fear that pretending to be in love was going to lead to actually falling in love. The fear that, in 25 days, walking away from each other was going to break both their hearts. Then I guess, Emily said quietly, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Nathan squeezed her hands gently. Together. Together. Neither of them mentioned that crossing that bridge together would defeat the entire purpose of their arrangement. Neither of them mentioned that they were both already thinking about it. And neither of them mentioned that, somewhere between a fake marriage proposal and breakfast with Margaret Sterling, their temporary arrangement had started to feel like something that could last forever. Manhattan, 1 week before the reception, Emily Harper had always thought the phrase, baptism by fire, was just a metaphor. She was wrong. It was Monday morning, exactly 1 week before Margaret Sterling's impromptu reception at the Plaza Hotel, and Emily was sitting in the back of a town car that probably cost more than her yearly salary, heading to her first appointment with what Margaret had called the team. Relax, Nathan said from beside her, though he looked about as relaxed as a man facing a firing squad. It's just a fitting, Emily laughed. But it came out slightly hysterical. Nathan, your grandmother's assistant sent me a schedule for the entire week. Dress fittings, shoes, jewelry consultations, something called deportment coaching, media training, and what I can only assume is some kind of wife boot camp disguised as social integration sessions. Deportment coaching. Apparently, I need to learn how to walk, sit, stand, and hold a champagne flute like someone who belongs in your world. Emily showed him the printed itinerary on thick cream cardstock that probably cost more per page than her lunch budget. Look at this. Tuesday, posture and presence with Madame Dubois. Wednesday, conversation and cultural literacy with Professor Hartford. Thursday, media relations and public speaking with Regina Walsh. Nathan whistled low. Grandmother really doesn't mess around. Regina Walsh? As in the Regina Walsh who coaches celebrities and politicians? The same one who helped prepare the last 3 presidential candidates for debates. Yes. Emily stared at him. Nathan, this is insane. I'm not running for office. I'm just supposed to stand next to you and smile for one evening. You're not just supposed to stand next to me, Nathan said quietly. You're supposed to be my wife. And in my world, unfortunately, that comes with expectations. The car pulled up in front of an elegant brownstone on the Upper East Side. A discreet brass plaque beside the door read, Atelier Margot. By appointment only. This is it, Nathan said. Are you ready? Emily looked down at her jeans and sweater, the same ones from Margaret's visit that morning. In about 10 minutes, she was going to be standing in front of mirrors, being fitted for a dress that would probably cost more than her car, pretending to be someone she wasn't, preparing for a party where she'd have to convince 200 strangers that she was madly in love with a man she barely knew. A man who, if she was being honest with herself, she was starting to care about way more than was safe. No, she said honestly. But let's do it anyway. Atelier Margot was everything Emily had expected, and more. The showroom was elegant and intimidating, with crystal chandeliers, antique furniture, and gowns displayed like works of art. The woman who greeted them, Margot herself presumably, was tiny, perfectly put together, and had the kind of French accent that made everything sound sophisticated. Ah, Mrs. Sterling. You must be the bride we have heard so much about. Margot's eyes swept over Emily, with the assessment of someone who could determine your net worth, social status, and bra size. With a single glance, très belle. Very beautiful. We will have no trouble at all. Thank you, Emily managed. Come. We have much work to do. Mr. Sterling, you may wait in the salon. There is champagne and coffee, and the latest magazines. This will take some time. How much time? Nathan asked. 3 hours, perhaps 4. We must find the perfect silhouette, the perfect color, take measurements, discuss undergarments and accessories. Margot waved her hand dismissively. It is a process. Emily shot Nathan a look of pure panic. 4 hours? She'd assumed this would be like shopping at a department store. Try on a few dresses. Pick one. Leave. I'll be right here, Nathan said, and something in his voice was reassuring. Take your time. Bien. Now, Madam Sterling, if you please. Margot gestured toward a doorway draped in silk curtains. The fitting room beyond was larger than Emily's bedroom, with a platform surrounded by three-way mirrors, hooks for gowns, and lighting that somehow made everything look like a fairy tale. Two assistants appeared as if by magic, carrying armloads of dresses in every color imaginable. First, Margot said, clapping her hands together, we must understand what we are working with. Tell me about this reception. What kind of event? What time of day? What season? What is the feeling you wish to create? Emily realized she had no idea how to answer any of those questions. It's evening, at the Plaza Hotel. Margaret, Mrs. Sterling, is organizing it. Ah, Margaret Sterling. Margot's expression shifted to one of deep respect, a woman of impeccable taste. This means we cannot simply be beautiful. We must be perfect, classic, but with something special, elegant, but not boring. Do you understand? Not really, Emily admitted. No matter. I understand you are nervous. It is natural. You are marrying into one of the most prominent families in New York. Everyone will be watching, judging, forming opinions. The dress, it must tell the right story. What story should it tell? Margot studied Emily's face with the intensity of an artist examining a canvas. That you belong, that you are confident, that you are worthy of him, and, more importantly, that he is lucky to have you. She smiled. Trust me, Cherie. I have been doing this for 30 years. I dressed 3 Vanderbilt brides, 2 Getty daughters, and a Rockefeller granddaughter. I know what I am doing. For the next 4 hours, Emily was measured, pinned, draped, and transformed. She tried on dress after dress, each one more beautiful than the last. There were classic ball gowns that made her feel like a princess, sleek modern designs that emphasized her figure, vintage-inspired pieces that spoke of old Hollywood glamour. But it wasn't until Margot brought out the dress, a stunning creation in deep midnight blue silk that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light, that Emily understood what all the fuss was about. The moment she put it on, everything changed. The dress fit like it had been made specifically for her body, which, Emily realized, it essentially had been. The color brought out the blue in her eyes and made her skin glow. The silhouette was classic but modern, elegant but not stuffy. When she moved, the fabric flowed like water. Mon Dieu, breathed one of the assistants. Parfait, said Margot, her voice filled with satisfaction. Absolutely perfect. Emily stared at herself in the three-way mirror. The woman looking back at her was someone she barely recognized. Confident, elegant, beautiful, in a way that seemed effortless but probably took hours of work to achieve. It's... Emily started, then stopped. There weren't words for how the dress made her feel. It is you, Margot said simply, but the best version of you, the version that knows she belongs in any room she enters. Emily nodded, not trusting her voice. Excellent. Now we must discuss shoes, undergarments, jewelry, and your hair. Who will be doing your hair? I don't know. I usually just... No. For this, we need a professional. I will make calls. Margot was already scribbling notes on a pad, and makeup, of course, and a manicure. Everything must be coordinated. By the time Emily emerged from the fitting room 4 hours later, she had not only a dress but an entire ensemble, complete with shoes that probably cost more than her monthly salary, undergarments that were apparently essential for the proper silhouette, and appointments with a hairstylist and makeup artist who were, according to Margot, the best in the city. Nathan looked up from his magazine as she approached. How did it go? I think I just spent more money on one outfit than I've spent on clothes in my entire life, Emily said, sinking into the chair beside him. Worth it? Emily thought about the woman in the mirror, about how the dress had made her feel like she could conquer the world. Maybe. Ask me again after the reception. Will you at least give me a hint about what it looks like? Absolutely not. Isn't it bad luck for the groom to see the dress before the wedding? We're already married, remember? The words hung between them, a reminder of the complicated reality they were living. They were married on paper, living together, preparing for a public celebration of their union, but they were also virtual strangers engaged in an elaborate charade that was becoming more complicated by the day. Right, Emily said softly. Sometimes I forget. Do you? Nathan's voice was quiet, serious. Forget, I mean. Emily looked at him, really looked at him. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her car, but his hair was slightly mussed from running his hands through it. and there was something vulnerable in his expression that made her chest tight. Sometimes, she admitted, do you? More often than I should. They stared at each other for a moment. The weight of that admission settled between them like a challenge, like a promise, like a warning. We should go, Nathan said finally. You have dinner with grandmother tonight. Dinner with... Emily's eyes widened. That wasn't on the schedule. Grandmother doesn't believe in schedules for family dinners. She called while you were in there. 7 at her house. Her house? Nathan, I can't have dinner with your grandmother. I don't know how to behave at fancy dinner parties. What if I use the wrong fork? What if I say something stupid? Emily. Nathan reached over and took her hand, his thumb tracing reassuring circles over her knuckles. Breathe. It's just dinner. Just dinner with Margaret Sterling, who could probably destroy my life with a single disapproving look. She likes you. How do you know? Because you're still alive. Nathan's smile was teasing but warm. Trust me. If grandmother didn't approve of you, you would know it by now. The fact that she's planning this reception, setting up all these appointments, inviting you to dinner, it means she's accepted you as family. Family? The word felt strange on Emily's tongue. She'd grown up in a small, close-knit family where dinner meant take-out Chinese food eaten in front of the TV, and fancy meant using the good paper plates. The idea of being part of the Sterling family, with their traditions and expectations, and probably enough money to buy small countries, was terrifying. Hey, Nathan squeezed her hand gently. You don't have to become someone else, remember? Just be yourself. Myself in a world where dinner probably involves 7 courses and conversation about art collections and charitable foundations? Probably, Nathan agreed. But grandmother isn't interested in whether you know which fork to use. She's interested in whether you make me happy. Do I? The question slipped out before Emily could stop it. Make you happy, I mean. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes searching her face. You make me feel like myself, he said finally. Like the person I was before I became the CEO, before I became the heir to the Sterling legacy. You look at me and see Nathan, not the company or the money or the reputation. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Emily felt something warm and dangerous unfold in her chest. Nathan, I know, he said quickly. I know this is supposed to be temporary, professional. But Emily, what's happening between us? It doesn't feel professional. What does it feel like? Real. The word came out rough, honest. It feels real. They were interrupted by Margot, appearing with a garment bag and several shopping bags. Voila. Everything is ready. The dress will be delivered Friday morning, along with the shoes and accessories, and I have made appointments for you with Jean-Claude for hair and Sophia for makeup. Saturday afternoon. Thank you, Emily managed, still reeling from Nathan's admission. It has been my pleasure. You will be magnificent, ma chérie. Absolutely magnificent. The ride to Margaret Sterling's Upper East Side mansion was quiet, both Emily and Nathan lost in their own thoughts. Emily stared out the window at the elegant brownstones and tried not to think about what Nathan had said, about the way he'd looked at her when he'd said it felt real, because it did feel real. More real than anything she'd ever experienced, which was terrifying because, in 3 weeks, it would all be over. Emily, Nathan said as they pulled up in front of a mansion that looked like something out of a movie. There's something I should probably tell you about dinner with grandmother. What? She's not going to be alone. Emily's stomach dropped. What do you mean? She's invited a few other family members. My Aunt Elizabeth, my cousin William, probably my Uncle Thomas. Just close family. Just close family. Emily laughed, but it came out slightly hysterical. Nathan, I was nervous about dinner with your grandmother. Now you're telling me I have to face the entire Sterling family? Not the entire family, just the core group, the people whose opinions matter to grandmother. Oh, that makes it so much better. The car stopped, and Emily could see warm light spilling from the windows of the mansion. Through the sheer curtains, she caught glimpses of elegant figures moving around inside. The rest of the Sterling family preparing to meet and judge the woman who had somehow managed to marry their golden boy without any of them knowing about it. I can't do this, Emily said suddenly. Nathan, I'm not ready. I don't know how to be part of your family. I don't know how to make small talk with people who probably own more art than most museums. I'm going to embarrass you. Emily, look at me. Nathan's voice was firm but gentle. You are not going to embarrass me. You are intelligent, funny, kind, and beautiful. You held your own with Sophia Langley. You charmed my grandmother, and you've been handling everything that's been thrown at you with grace and courage. You belong here. I work in cybersecurity, Nathan. I grew up in New Jersey. My idea of fine dining is Olive Garden on special occasions, and that's exactly why you're perfect. Nathan reached over and took both her hands in his. My family is used to people who want things from them. Money, connections, status, but you don't want any of that. You want to go back to your studio apartment and your normal life. That authenticity, that lack of agenda, it's exactly what they're not used to. And it's exactly what they need. Emily stared into his storm gray eyes and felt some of her panic subside. You really think so? I know so. Nathan lifted their joined hands and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles. Besides, they're going to love you. How could they not? The simple gesture, the warmth in his voice, the way he looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. It all combined to make Emily's heart do something complicated and dangerous. Okay, she said softly, let's go meet your family together. Together, Margaret Sterling's dining room was like something out of a period movie. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over a table that could seat 20, set with china that looked like it belonged in a museum and silverware that probably had its own insurance policy. Oil paintings of stern-looking ancestors gazed down from the walls, and fresh flowers that probably cost more than Emily's grocery budget created elegant centerpieces. But it was the people around the table that made Emily's palms sweat. Emily, darling. Margaret rose from her place at the head of the table, resplendent in a burgundy dress that probably cost more than Emily's monthly rent. Come meet the family. The introductions were a blur of names and faces. Elizabeth Sterling Bennett, Margaret's daughter and Nathan's aunt. Elegant, sharp-eyed, with the kind of smile that could mean anything. William Bennett, Elizabeth's son and Nathan's cousin. Charming, handsome, with an easy grin that somehow made Emily feel welcome. Thomas Sterling, Margaret's son and Nathan's uncle. Distinguished, quiet, with kind eyes that reminded her of Nathan's. So, you're the mysterious woman who finally captured our Nathan's heart, Elizabeth said, once they were all seated. Her voice was warm, but Emily caught the undertone of evaluation. We were beginning to think he was going to remain a bachelor forever. Elizabeth, Margaret's voice carried a warning. What? I'm simply saying that Nathan has always been so focused on business, so careful about his personal life. It's wonderful to see him find someone who makes him happy. Elizabeth's smile was perfectly polite and absolutely calculating. Tell us about yourself, Emily. Where are you from? New Jersey, Emily said, proud that her voice came out steady. A small town called Millfield. Nothing too exciting. And your family? What do they do? Emily felt heat creep up her neck. This was it, the moment where she revealed just how different she was from them. My parents both work for the Postal Service. They've been mail carriers for almost 30 years. The table fell silent. Emily could feel everyone's eyes on her, evaluating, judging, trying to figure out how someone from her background had ended up married to Nathan Sterling. How wonderfully honest, Thomas said finally, his voice warm with what sounded like genuine approval. It's refreshing to meet someone with such straightforward family values. Thomas is right, William added, grinning. Most of the women in our circle come from families where nobody's worked an actual job in 3 generations. It's nice to meet someone real. Emily felt some of her tension ease. My parents always taught me that hard work and integrity are more important than anything else. Wise parents, Margaret said approvingly. And what do you do? Nathan mentioned cybersecurity. I work for his company, actually. I analyze security threats, prevent data breaches, that sort of thing. Emily was grateful to be talking about something she actually knew about. It's like being a detective, but for computer crimes. How fascinating, Elizabeth said. And for the first time, her interest seemed genuine. I imagine that requires quite a bit of intelligence and skill. It does, Nathan said, speaking up for the first time since the introductions. Emily is one of the best analysts we have. She's prevented 3 major security breaches that could have cost us millions. The pride in his voice made Emily's cheeks warm. It's just my job. It's more than that, Nathan continued. Emily sees patterns that other people miss. She thinks several steps ahead, anticipates problems before they happen. It's a rare talent. Sounds like she's perfect for our family, William said with a grin. We're all about thinking ahead and preventing disasters. As the evening progressed, Emily found herself relaxing, despite her best efforts to remain nervous. The conversation flowed from business to politics to art to travel. And while she couldn't contribute to discussions about European art collections or charity galas in Monaco, she found that her perspective was actually valued. When Elizabeth mentioned a recent scandal involving a tech company's data breach, Emily was able to explain the technical aspects in a way that made everyone understand the implications. When Thomas asked about emerging cybersecurity threats, She painted a picture of the digital landscape that had even Margaret asking thoughtful questions. "You know," Elizabeth said as they moved to the parlor for coffee and dessert, "I was skeptical when I heard about this sudden marriage. Nathan has always been so careful, so methodical about everything. The idea that he'd elope in Vegas seemed completely out of character." Emily's heart started racing. This was it. The moment where their story would be tested by someone who knew Nathan better than almost anyone. "But watching you two together tonight," Elizabeth continued, "seeing how he looks at you, how you look at him, it makes perfect sense. Love doesn't follow timelines or logic, does it?" "No," Emily said softly, meeting Nathan's eyes across the room. "It doesn't." "I have to admit," William said, settling into a chair with his coffee, "I've never seen Nathan this relaxed. Usually at family dinners, he's checking his phone every 5 minutes and talking about quarterly reports. Tonight, he's barely glanced at his phone once. That's because Emily makes me remember there's a world outside the office," Nathan said, coming to sit beside her on the sofa. His hand found hers naturally, their fingers intertwining without conscious thought. "She keeps me grounded." "And what does Nathan do for you?" Margaret asked Emily, her sharp blue eyes missing nothing. Emily looked at Nathan, at this man who had rescued her from Ryan Mitchell, who had given her protection and luxury, and a glimpse into a world she'd never imagined. But more than that, he'd made her feel valued, respected, beautiful. He'd seen through her carefully constructed walls to the person underneath, and decided she was worth protecting. "He makes me brave," Emily said honestly. "He looks at me and sees someone stronger than I think I am, someone capable of more than I ever imagine." "And how does that make you feel?" Thomas asked gently. "Like I could do anything," Emily admitted. "Like I could be anyone." "You don't need to be anyone else," Nathan said quietly. "You just need to be you." The room fell silent. But it was a warm silence, filled with the kind of understanding that came from witnessing something real and precious. "Well," Margaret said finally, her voice slightly thick with emotion, "I think this calls for champagne. We're celebrating love, after all." As Margaret bustled off to get champagne, Elizabeth moved to sit on Emily's other side. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I came here tonight prepared to dislike you, to find fault with this sudden marriage, to protect Nathan from what I assumed was a fortune hunter or social climber. And now?" Emily asked. "Now I'm grateful." Elizabeth's smile was genuine this time, warm and welcoming. "Nathan has carried the weight of this family's expectations his entire life. He's been the perfect son, the perfect nephew, the perfect CEO, but he's never looked truly happy. Not until tonight." "Elizabeth's right," William said, having overheard. "I don't think I've ever seen you this relaxed, cousin. Emily's good for you. She's good for all of us." Thomas added, "Fresh perspective, honest opinions. No agenda beyond making our boy happy. That's exactly what this family needs." When Margaret returned with champagne, she found a room full of smiling faces and easy conversation. She raised her glass, her eyes twinkling with satisfaction. "To Emily and Nathan," she said, "to love that surprises us, to happiness that finds us when we least expect it, and to the family that grows stronger with each new addition." "To Emily and Nathan," everyone echoed. As Emily sipped her champagne, which was predictably the best she'd ever tasted, she caught Nathan watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. There was warmth there, and pride, and something else. "Something?" she asked softly. "Nothing," he said, but his smile was soft and genuine. "Just thank you." "For what?" "For being exactly who you are. For fitting into my family like you've always belonged here. For making this feel." He paused, searching for the right word. "Real," Emily suggested. "Real," he agreed. And as the evening wound down, as they said goodbye to the various family members and made their way back to the car, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere between the cocktails and the coffee, between Elizabeth's approval and Margaret's satisfaction, their fake marriage had taken another step toward becoming something genuine. The problem was, she was starting to want it to be real, and from the way Nathan had looked at her all evening, with warmth and pride and something that looked dangerously like affection, she was beginning to suspect he felt the same way. The rest of the week passed in a blur of appointments, lessons, and gradually increasing panic. Emily learned to walk in heels that could double as lethal weapons, to hold conversations about art and literature with Professor Hartford, who turned out to be surprisingly charming, and to handle media questions with Regina Walsh, who was terrifying but effective. She learned that there were 17 different ways to address members of various social levels, that charity work was not optional for wives of prominent businessmen, and that her every public appearance would be analyzed, photographed, and probably critiqued by people she'd never met. She also learned that Nathan brought her coffee every morning exactly the way she liked it, that he had a terrible habit of working until midnight and forgetting to eat dinner, and that when he thought no one was watching, he had a smile that could power half of Manhattan. By Friday evening, the night before the reception, Emily felt like she'd been put through some kind of intensive training program for a job she'd never applied for. Her dress hung in the closet like a beautiful reminder of what tomorrow would bring. Her shoes were lined up like soldiers. Her jewelry, borrowed from Margaret's extensive collection, sparkled in their velvet boxes. "Nervous?" Nathan asked, finding her standing on the balcony of his penthouse, looking out over the city lights. "Terrified," Emily admitted. "What if I mess up tomorrow? What if I say the wrong thing, or trip in these ridiculous heels, or forget someone's name? Then you'll recover gracefully and move on," Nathan said. Coming to stand beside her, "Emily, you've met my family," charmed Regina Walsh, "and survived a week of Margaret's intensive social boot camp. You're ready for this. I don't feel ready. None of us ever feel ready for the things that matter most." Nathan was quiet for a moment, his hands resting on the balcony railing. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course. I've been thinking about this week, about everything that's happened since you took my hand in that elevator, and I keep coming back to the same realization." "What realization?" Nathan turned to face her fully, his gray eyes serious in the glow of the city lights. "I don't want this to end." Emily's heart stopped. "Nathan, I know what we agreed. 1 month, then a quiet divorce. A simple business arrangement to solve both our problems. But Emily, nothing about this feels simple anymore." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that somewhere between fake marriage proposals and family dinners, I forgot we were pretending." Nathan reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture so familiar now it made her chest ache. "I'm saying that when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I think about is whether you're happy. When I'm in meetings, I find myself wondering what you'd think about the decisions I'm making. When I come home at night, the best part of my day is seeing you curled up on the couch with your laptop, probably saving my company from some cyber threat I don't even know about." Emily stared at him, her heart racing. "Nathan, we can't." "Why not?" His voice was soft but urgent. "Give me one good reason why we can't make this real." "Because you're you, and I'm me," Emily said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Because you're worth billions of dollars, and I clip coupons. Because you went to Harvard, and I went to state school on scholarships. Because you have houses in multiple countries, and I have a studio apartment with a broken air conditioner. Because none of that matters." Nathan interrupted. "Emily, I don't care about any of that. I care about the fact that you make me laugh, that you challenge me, that you see me as a person instead of a bank account. I care about the way you scrunch your nose when you're concentrating, and how you argue with me about taking better care of myself, and the fact that you're probably the bravest person I've ever met." "I'm not brave," Emily whispered. "You took my hand in an elevator when you had no idea where it would lead. You stood up to Sophia Langley on your first night as my fake wife. You walked into a room full of sterlings and made them love you in under an hour. You've spent a week learning to navigate a world that's completely foreign to you, and you've done it with grace and humor and determination." Nathan's hands came up to frame her face gently. "If that's not brave, I don't know what is." Emily felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "What happens if we try this, and it doesn't work? What happens if we're too different? If the real world interferes? If we realize this was all just some kind of elaborate fantasy? What happens if we don't try and spend the rest of our lives wondering what if?" Nathan countered. "Emily, I've spent my entire adult life making safe choices, calculated decisions based on risk assessments and probability studies, and where has it gotten me? Alone in a penthouse, married to my work, surrounded by people who see me as a means to an end, and then you took my hand, and everything changed." His thumb brushed across her cheek, and Emily realized she was crying. "You make me want to take risks, Emily. You make me want to choose happiness over safety, love over logic. You make me want to be the man you see when you look at me." "What man is that? Someone worth loving." The words hung between them in the cool night air, honest and vulnerable and terrifying in their intensity. Emily looked into Nathan's storm-gray eyes and saw her own fears and hopes reflected back at her. "Tomorrow," she said finally, "we have to convince 200 people that we're madly in love. Yes, that we can't keep our hands off each other. Yes, That we're planning to spend the rest of our lives together. Emily. Nathan's voice was rough with emotion. What if we are? And before she could think, before she could worry about consequences or complications, or all the reasons why this was a terrible idea, Emily rose up on her toes and kissed him. It was supposed to be soft, sweet, tentative, a first kiss between two people who were testing the waters of something new and uncertain. Instead, it was fire. Nathan's arms came around her immediately, pulling her closer as his lips moved against hers with a hunger that suggested he'd been thinking about this as much as she had. Emily's hands fisted in his shirt, anchoring herself to him as the world tilted and reformed around them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emily rested her forehead against his. That was... She started. Real. Nathan finished. Very real. So, what happens now? Emily looked into his eyes. This man who had rescued her, protected her, challenged her, and somehow made her believe she was worth loving, and made a decision that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. Now, she said, we find out if we're as good at being real as we are at pretending. And as Nathan kissed her again under the Manhattan stars, with the city sprawling out below them and tomorrow's reception looming ahead, Emily realized that somewhere between a fake marriage proposal and a real first kiss, she'd fallen completely, irrevocably, dangerously in love with her temporary husband. The question was whether he'd still want her when the month was over, and the fairy tale had to end. The Plaza Hotel, Manhattan, reception day. Emily Harper. No. Emily Sterling stood in front of the full-length mirror in the Plaza Hotel's bridal suite, staring at a woman she barely recognized. The midnight blue gown that Margot had created was even more stunning than she remembered. It hugged her curves in all the right places, the silk flowing like liquid starlight when she moved. Jean-Claude had worked magic with her hair, creating an elegant updo that looked effortless but probably involved 17 different products and techniques she'd never heard of. Sophia's makeup was flawless, dramatic enough for the evening but natural enough that she still looked like herself. Margaret's borrowed sapphire necklace sparkled at her throat, matching earrings, catching the light every time she turned her head. Even her shoes, those dangerous, beautiful heels that had taken her 3 days to learn to walk in properly, felt like they belonged on her feet. She looked like she belonged in this world, like she'd been born to stand next to Nathan Sterling at elegant receptions, to charm Manhattan's elite, to be the wife of one of the most powerful men in the city. The problem was, after last night's kiss on the balcony, after Nathan's confession that he didn't want their arrangement to end, she wasn't sure if she was dressing up for a performance or for the most important night of her life. You look absolutely radiant, darling, Margaret said from behind her, making Emily jump. She hadn't heard the older woman enter the suite. Nervous? Terrified, Emily admitted, turning to face Margaret. What if I mess this up? What if I say the wrong thing, or trip, or forget someone's name? What if people see right through me and realize I don't belong here? Margaret studied her for a long moment, then smiled, the warm, genuine smile she reserved for family. My dear girl, you're asking the wrong questions. What do you mean? You're worried about whether you belong in our world. But the real question is whether our world deserves you. Margaret stepped closer, adjusting Emily's necklace with practiced hands. I've been watching you this week, dear. I've seen how you handle pressure, how you treat people regardless of their status, how you make my grandson light up like he's discovered electricity. You don't need to prove you belong here, Emily. We need to prove we're worthy of having you. Emily felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Margaret, none of that. You'll ruin Sophia's beautiful work. Margaret handed her a tissue. Now, let me tell you something about tonight. There will be people in that ballroom who are hoping you'll fail. Women who wanted to marry Nathan themselves, families who feel threatened by outsiders, society vultures who feed on drama and scandal. They'll be watching for any sign of weakness, any hint that you're not good enough for the Sterling name. Emily's stomach clenched. That's not exactly comforting. I'm not trying to comfort you, dear. I'm trying to arm you. Margaret's eyes were sharp, calculating, because here's what they don't know. You've already won. You have Nathan's heart, you have his family's approval, and you have something none of those other women have ever possessed. Authenticity. You're not trying to become someone else to fit in. You're simply being yourself, and that's exactly what makes you perfect for him. What if being myself isn't enough? Emily. Margaret's voice was firm but kind. Yesterday, I watched you charm a room full of Sterlings who are notoriously difficult to impress. You made Thomas laugh. Truly laugh. For the first time since his wife died 3 years ago, You got Elizabeth to admit she was wrong about something, which hasn't happened since the Clinton administration, and you made William actually put down his phone and engage in a real conversation. That's just being polite. That's being genuine. That's being the kind of person who sees others as human beings, rather than stepping stones or obstacles. Margaret placed her hands on Emily's shoulders. My grandson has spent his entire life surrounded by people who want something from him. Money, status, connections, power. But when he looks at you, he sees someone who wants him for who he is, not what he has. Do you understand how rare that is? Emily nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. Now, there's something else we need to discuss. Margaret's expression became more serious. I know about the arrangement. Emily's blood turned to ice. What arrangement? The fake marriage, dear. The 1-month contract, the plan to have a quiet divorce after the gala. Margaret's smile was knowing. Did you really think I built a business empire without learning how to read people? I knew something was unusual from the moment I met you. No one elopes in Vegas without telling their family unless they're hiding something. Margaret, I can explain. You don't need to explain anything to me, darling. I understand perfectly. Margaret moved to the window, gazing out at Central Park. Nathan needed protection from the endless parade of unsuitable women I've been subjecting him to. You needed protection from that dreadful Mitchell man. It was a practical solution to both your problems. Emily stared at her, speechless. What you didn't expect, Margaret continued, was to actually fall in love with each other. How did you? Because I've been married for 53 years, dear. I know what real love looks like. Margaret turned back to face Emily. I've watched Nathan with dozens of women over the years. Suitable women, beautiful women, accomplished women. And he's been polite, charming, appropriate, but never real, never himself. And with you, he's the man I remember from before his father died, before he had to become the CEO at 28, before he had to carry the weight of family expectations and corporate responsibility. With you, he's just Nathan again. Margaret's eyes were soft with emotion. That's worth more than all the suitable marriages in the world. Emily felt tears threatening again. What happens now, if you know it was fake, if you know we were planning to divorce? What happens now is that you stop thinking of it as fake and start thinking of it as the best decision either of you have ever made. Margaret's voice was firm. Emily, I've spent the last 3 years watching my grandson work himself into the ground, dating women who bored him, following a path that was making him miserable. In 1 week, you've given him back his smile, his laughter, his joy. Why on earth would I let you walk away from that? Because he deserves someone better. He deserves someone who loves him. And you do love him, don't you? Emily met Margaret's knowing gaze and felt the last of her defenses crumble. Yes, I love him so much it terrifies me. Good. Terror is an excellent sign. It means you understand the stakes. Margaret moved closer, taking Emily's hands in hers. Now, let me ask you something. Forget about contracts and arrangements and divorce plans. Forget about what you think you deserve or don't deserve. If you could have anything in the world, what would it be? Emily closed her eyes, allowing herself to imagine for just a moment. I'd want to wake up every morning in Nathan's arms. I'd want to build a life with him, support his dreams, maybe start a family someday. I'd want to grow old with him, to be his partner in everything, to love him for the rest of my life. Then that's what you're going to fight for tonight. Emily opened her eyes. Fight for? Do you think love just happens, dear? Do you think successful marriages are built on attraction and good intentions alone? Margaret's smile was fierce. Love is a choice you make every day, and sometimes it's a choice you have to fight for. I don't understand. Tonight, there will be people who want to see your marriage fail. There will be tests, challenges, attempts to drive wedges between you and Nathan. There will be moments when it would be easier to walk away, to go back to your safe, small life, to convince yourself that this was all just a beautiful dream. And I'm going to choose love anyway. You're going to choose courage over comfort, risk over safety, the unknown future with Nathan over the predictable past without him. Margaret squeezed Emily's hands. Because that's what warriors do, dear. And make no mistake, tonight, you're going to war for your happiness. Before Emily could respond, there was a soft knock on the door. Come in, Margaret called. The door opened to reveal Nathan, and Emily's breath caught in her throat. She'd seen him in expensive suits before, but this was different. The black tuxedo was perfectly tailored, making him look like he'd stepped off the cover of a magazine. His dark hair was styled to perfection, his bow tie straight, his cufflinks family heirlooms. probably catching the light, but it was his expression when he saw her that made her knees weak. He looked at her like she was a miracle, like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, like he couldn't quite believe she was real. "Emily," he breathed, his voice rough with emotion. "You're stunning, gorgeous, perfect." Margaret supplied helpfully. "Mine," Nathan finished, his eyes never leaving Emily's face. "She's mine." The possessiveness in his voice, the certainty, the way he was looking at her like she was the center of his universe. It made Emily feel powerful and cherished and absolutely terrified all at once. "You clean up pretty well yourself," Emily managed, proud that her voice came out steady, despite the fact that her heart was beating like a drum solo. Nathan crossed the room in 3 long strides, stopping just close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. "Are you ready for this?" "No," Emily said honestly, "but I'm ready to try. Together." Together. Nathan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "There's one more thing." Emily's heart stopped. "Nathan." "Not what you're thinking," he said quickly, though his smile suggested he wouldn't be opposed to that particular conversation in the future. "We're already married, remember? But you need a proper wedding ring, something that tells the world you're taken." He opened the box to reveal the most beautiful ring Emily had ever seen. It wasn't enormous or flashy. Instead, it was elegant, timeless, with a center diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light like stars. "It was my grandmother's," Nathan said softly. Margaret insisted. Emily looked at Margaret, who was trying very hard to look innocent. "You insisted?" "A woman needs a proper ring, dear, especially when she's fighting for her future." Margaret's smile was pure mischief. "Besides, it's been sitting in a safe for 20 years. Time it saw some action again." Nathan took Emily's left hand in his touch gentle but sure. "Emily Sterling, will you wear my ring?" The question was simple, but the weight behind it was enormous. This wasn't just about jewelry or appearances. This was about commitment, about choosing each other, about deciding that whatever had started as fake was now real enough to bet their futures on. "Yes," Emily whispered. Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Everything about this night felt like destiny, like the universe conspiring to bring them together. "Perfect," Margaret said with satisfaction. "Now, are we ready to show Manhattan society what real love looks like?" The Plaza Hotel's ballroom was transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in white silk and silver. Massive flower arrangements, white roses, peonies, and gardenias, filled the air with their perfume. The city lights twinkled through the tall windows, and a string quartet played softly in one corner. But it wasn't the elegant decor that made Emily's breath catch as they paused at the entrance. It was the sea of faces that turned toward them. 200 of Manhattan's most influential people, all waiting to get their first real look at Nathan Sterling's mysterious wife. "Breathe," Nathan murmured in her ear, his hand warm and steady at the small of her back. "Remember, we belong here, do we?" Emily whispered back. "We belong together. That's all that matters." The receiving line was a blur of names and faces. Emily smiled, shook hands, accepted congratulations, and made small talk with people whose net worth probably exceeded most countries' GDP, but through it all, she was acutely aware of Nathan beside her. The way he introduced her with pride, the way his hand never left her back, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the room who mattered. "You're doing beautifully," he whispered during a brief lull between introductions. "I haven't embarrassed you yet. You could never embarrass me." His thumb traced a small circle on her back. "Have I mentioned how stunning you look tonight?" "Only about 17 times. Not nearly enough." Then they were interrupted by the arrival of a couple Emily didn't recognize. A distinguished man in his 60 and a woman dripping in diamonds who looked like she'd stepped off the society pages. "Nathan," the woman exclaimed, air kissing him on both cheeks. "Darling, you look absolutely divine, and this must be the famous bride we've all been dying to meet." "Emily," Nathan said smoothly, "I'd like you to meet George and Evelyn Thornton. George sits on the board of directors." Emily's stomach dropped. "Board member." This was important. "Mrs. Thornton." "Mr. Thornton, it's lovely to meet you," Emily said, offering her hand. "Please, call me Evelyn." Everyone does. Evelyn's smile was perfectly polite and completely calculating. "You know, dear, we were all so surprised to hear about the wedding. So sudden, so unexpected. When you know, Emily replied, falling back on their practice story. Of course. And where did you say you were from again?" New Jersey, Emily said, proud that her voice remained steady. How quaint. Evelyn's smile never wavered. And your family? What do they do? Here it was. The test Margaret had warned her about. Emily could feel other conversations quieting around them, people leaning in to hear her answer. My parents are mail carriers, Emily said clearly. They've been serving their community for almost 30 years. I'm very proud of them. Mail carriers? Evelyn repeated, as if the words were foreign. How refreshing. Refreshing indeed, George said, and his smile seemed more genuine than his wife's. It's nice to meet someone with such grounded family values. Yes, Evelyn agreed, though her tone suggested she found it anything but nice. I'm sure your background gives you such a unique perspective on things. Emily felt heat rise in her cheeks. The woman was being polite, but the subtext was clear. You don't belong here. It does, Nathan said smoothly, his arm sliding around Emily's waist. Emily's perspective is one of the things I love most about her. She sees opportunities and solutions that the rest of us miss because we're too insulated by privilege. How wonderful, Evelyn said. And what exactly do you do, dear? I work in cybersecurity, Emily replied. For Nathan's company, I assume. Actually, I've been considering other options, Emily said, surprising herself. I've had several interesting offers recently. It wasn't entirely true. She'd had one recruiter call last month, but something about Evelyn's condescending tone made her want to push back. Really? George leaned forward, suddenly interested. From whom? Emily named the first tech company that came to mind. They're looking for someone to head up their new security division. Impressive, George said. That's quite a prestigious position. Emily is one of the best in her field, Nathan said, pride evident in his voice. Any company would be lucky to have her. But surely, now that you're married, you'll be focusing on other things. Evelyn interjected. Charity work, social obligations, perhaps starting a family soon. The question hit Emily like a physical blow. Starting a family with Nathan. The thought made her chest tight with longing and terror in equal measure. We're taking things one day at a time, Emily managed. Of course. No need to rush into anything. Evelyn's smile was sharp. Though, I imagine there's quite a bit of pressure to produce an heir for the sterling name. Evelyn, George warned, clearly uncomfortable with his wife's probing. What? I'm simply making conversation. It's only natural that people would be curious about the future of such an established family line. Emily felt trapped, like Evelyn was deliberately trying to make her uncomfortable. The conversation was attracting more attention now, people openly listening to see how she'd handle the pressure. The future of the Sterling family, Emily said carefully, will be whatever Nathan and I decide it should be, together. How modern of you, Evelyn said. Though I suppose when you marry into a family like this one, certain expectations come with the territory. The only expectation that matters, Nathan said, his voice carrying a warning edge, is that Emily be happy. Everything else is secondary. Of course, darling. I didn't mean to suggest otherwise. Evelyn's laugh was like breaking glass. I'm simply saying that marriage is about compromise, isn't it? About adapting to each other's worlds. It's about partnership, Emily said firmly. About supporting each other's dreams while building something beautiful together. How romantic. Evelyn's tone suggested she found it anything but, though I do hope you understand what a responsibility it is, being married to someone in Nathan's position. The scrutiny, the expectations, the constant pressure to represent the family appropriately. Are you suggesting I'm not capable of handling that responsibility? Emily asked, her voice deceptively calm. The ballroom fell silent around them. Even the string quartet seemed to pause. Evelyn's eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected Emily to push back. Not at all, dear. I'm simply saying it's quite an adjustment for someone from your background. My background, Emily repeated slowly, taught me that character matters more than pedigree, that integrity is more valuable than inheritance, that love is more important than status. She met Evelyn's gaze directly. If that's not appropriate for this family, then perhaps I'm not the one who needs to adjust. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then George started to chuckle. Well said, young lady. Well said indeed. He turned to his wife. Evelyn, I think you've met your match. Indeed, came Margaret's voice from behind them. Emily, dear, you're needed for the toast. Emily turned to find Margaret approaching with a knowing smile and what looked like barely contained glee. Mrs. Thornton, Margaret continued coolly. How lovely to see you. I trust you're enjoying the party. Of course, Margaret. Wonderful event, as always. Evelyn's voice was notably cooler now. We were just getting to know your new granddaughter-in-law. Marvelous. I'm sure you found her as delightful as the rest of the family has." Margaret's smile could have cut glass. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a toast to prepare for." As Margaret swept them away from the Thorntons, Emily felt her hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline. "How did I do?" she whispered. "Magnificently," Margaret said with satisfaction. "Evelyn Thornton has been the queen bee of this social circle for 20 years. No one has ever stood up to her like that. She was testing me." "Of course she was. And you passed with flying colors." Margaret's eyes sparkled. The look on her face when you suggested she might be the one who needed to adjust priceless. "I can't believe I said that." "I can," Nathan said, his arm tightening around her waist. "You were incredible. Was I too confrontational? Did I embarrass you?" "Emily." Nathan stopped walking and turned to face her fully. "You just defended our marriage, our love, and yourself with more grace and strength than I've ever seen. I have never been more proud to call you my wife." "Really? Really?" He leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. "Now, are you ready for that toast?" The toast turned out to be more elaborate than Emily had expected. Margaret took the microphone and delivered a speech about love, family, and the joy of welcoming Emily into their lives. William followed with a funny story about Nathan's teenage years that had everyone laughing. Elizabeth spoke beautifully about the importance of finding someone who sees your true self, and then it was Nathan's turn. Emily watched as he took the microphone, completely at ease in front of 200 people. This was his world, she reminded herself. These were his people. He'd been trained for moments like this since birth. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Nathan began, his voice carrying easily through the ballroom. "When Emily and I decided to get married, we wanted to keep it simple, private, but my grandmother had other ideas." Laughter rippled through the crowd. She insisted that we needed a proper celebration, a chance for our families and friends to come together and toast our happiness. And, as usual, she was right. Margaret beamed from her seat at the head table. "I've made a lot of speeches over the years," Nathan continued. "Business presentations, board meetings, charity functions. But this is different. This isn't about quarterly reports or market projections or strategic initiatives. This is about the most important decision I've ever made." He paused, his eyes finding Emily's across the room. 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be standing here today, married to the woman of my dreams, I wouldn't have believed them. I thought I had my life figured out. Work, responsibility, duty, those were the things that mattered. I had no room for spontaneity, for passion, for the kind of love that changes everything. Emily felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. And then I met Emily, and suddenly, all my carefully laid plans didn't matter anymore because she looked at me and saw someone worth loving, not the CEO, not the heir to the family business, not the bank account or the reputation, just me. The ballroom was completely silent now, everyone hanging on his words. Emily taught me that the best things in life aren't planned or calculated or safely predicted. They're gifts, unexpected, perfect gifts that you can either accept with gratitude or let slip away out of fear. Nathan's voice grew stronger, more certain. "I chose gratitude. I chose love. I chose the bravest, most beautiful, most genuine person I've ever met. And I intend to spend every day of the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of the choice she made to love me back." He raised his champagne glass, his eyes locked on Emily's. "To Emily, who makes me want to be the man she sees when she looks at me. To unexpected love, to second chances, and to the courage to say yes when happiness finds you." To Emily and Nathan, the crowd echoed, raising their glasses. Emily felt the tears spill over as applause filled the ballroom. That wasn't just a toast. It was a declaration, a promise, a statement of intent that went far beyond their original arrangement. "And now," Nathan said as the applause died down, "I believe tradition calls for dancing." The string quartet transitioned into a waltz, and couples began moving onto the dance floor. Nathan appeared at Emily's side, offering his hand with a smile that made her heart race. "May I have this dance, Mrs. Sterling?" "Always," Emily said, taking his hand. The dance floor felt like a spotlight, with all eyes on them as they moved together to the music. But as Nathan's arms came around her, as they found their rhythm together, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. "That was quite a speech," Emily said softly. "Did you like it?" "I loved it. But Nathan, what happens when people find out our marriage started as a business arrangement? What happens when the truth comes out?" "What truth?" Nathan spun her gently, then pulled her back into his arms. "That I fell in love with my wife? That what started as convenience became the real thing? Emily, there's nothing to hide anymore." "What are you saying?" I'm saying forget the contract. Forget the 1-month timeline. Forget everything except this. He leaned closer, his lips brushing her ear. I love you, Emily. Not fake love. Not contractual love. Not convenient love. Real, honest, forever love. Emily's breath caught. Nathan, I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for 2 weeks, and most of that time we were pretending. His hand tightened on her waist. But I also know that when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I want to see is your face. I know that when I'm having the worst day imaginable, just thinking about you makes everything better. I know that I want to support your dreams, protect your happiness, and love you for the rest of my life. They were spinning slowly in the center of the dance floor, surrounded by Manhattan's elite. But Emily felt like they were the only 2 people in the world. What about the board? What about your grandmother's expectations? What about the fact that I don't know how to be the wife of a billionaire? What about the fact that you make me laugh? What about the fact that you challenge me to be better? What about the fact that you're kind to service staff, and you argue with me when I work too late, and you get this adorable wrinkle between your eyebrows when you're concentrating? Nathan's smile was soft, genuine. Emily, I don't need you to know how to be anything except yourself. And if myself isn't enough, then they don't deserve us. His voice was firm, certain. Emily, I've spent my entire life trying to be what other people expected me to be. The perfect son, the perfect CEO, the perfect heir, and I was miserable. But with you, I get to be just Nathan, the man who brings you coffee in the morning, who listens to you talk about cybersecurity threats, who falls asleep holding you every night. Emily stared into his storm-gray eyes and saw her future reflected there. Not the future she'd planned, safe and small and predictable, but the future she'd dreamed of in her secret heart. Love, partnership, adventure, a life built with someone who saw her truly and chose her anyway. I love you too, she whispered. So much it terrifies me. Good, Nathan said, spinning her one more time. Terror means it matters. Terror means it's real. So, what happens now? Now we dance. We smile for the cameras. We accept congratulations from people who may or may not wish us well. We go home together. And we wake up tomorrow, as husband and wife. Really? Truly? Completely? And the contract? What contract? Nathan's grin was wicked. As far as I'm concerned, Mrs. Sterling, our marriage license is the only document that matters. As the song came to an end, as applause filled the ballroom again, as other couples joined them on the dance floor, Emily realized that somewhere between a fake marriage proposal and a real first dance, she'd found her happily ever after. It wasn't the life she'd planned. It wasn't safe or predictable or anything like what she'd thought she wanted. It was better. Ready for the rest of our lives? Nathan asked as the next song began. Emily looked around the ballroom at Margaret beaming from her table, at William and Elizabeth laughing together, at the faces of 200 people who were witnessing the beginning of their real love story. She thought about the challenges ahead, the adjustments they'd have to make, the learning curve of building a life together. Then she looked back at Nathan, this man who had rescued her from Ryan Mitchell, who had protected her and challenged her, and somehow seen past all her defenses to the woman underneath. This man who made her feel brave and beautiful and worthy of love. With you, Emily said, standing on her toes to kiss him softly. I'm ready for anything. And as they danced under the crystal chandeliers, surrounded by the glittering lights of Manhattan and the warm glow of family approval, Emily knew that their fake marriage had become the realest thing in her life. Some fairy tales, she realized, were worth the risk. 6 months later, Emily Sterling stood in the same elevator where it all began. But this time, she wasn't alone. Nathan's arm was around her waist, his wedding ring catching the light as he gestured while explaining some new security protocol. And that's why your system works so well, he was saying. You anticipated the threat before anyone else even knew it existed. It's just pattern recognition, Emily said. But she was smiling. 6 months of marriage had taught her to accept compliments instead of deflecting them. It's genius, Nathan corrected. Which is why the board approved your promotion to Chief Security Officer. I still can't believe that happened. You're brilliant. You work harder than anyone else in the building, and you've saved us more money than most people make in a lifetime. Nathan pressed a kiss to her temple. Plus, having you as an official executive makes board meetings much more interesting. Because I ask inconvenient questions? Because you keep George Thornton in line. Ever since you called him out on that outdated encryption protocol, he's been singing your praises. The elevator dinged at the 20th floor, their floor now. since Emily had moved her office to the executive level. Speaking of inconvenient questions, Emily said as they walked hand in hand toward their offices, "Your grandmother called this morning. What did she want? To know when we're going to give her great-grandchildren." Nathan stopped walking. "And what did you tell her? That we've only been really married for 6 months, and we're still figuring things out." Emily bit her lip. "But Nathan, I've been thinking about the fact that I love you more every day, about the fact that waking up next to you is the best part of my morning, about the fact that I want to build a life with you that's even bigger and more beautiful than what we have now." Nathan's eyes softened. "Emily, I want babies with you," she said in a rush. "Little girls with your eyes and little boys with your stubborn streak. I want family vacations and PTA meetings and teaching them to be brave and kind and true to themselves. You want all that? I want everything with you. The ordinary moments and the extraordinary ones, the challenges and the celebrations, all of it." Nathan cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing across her cheeks. "You know what I want?" "What?" "To give you everything you've ever dreamed of, and a few things you haven't thought of yet." His smile was soft, intimate, starting with dinner tonight at that little Italian place in the village, where you wore the green dress on our first real date, the one where you told me you were falling in love with me, the one where I realized I was already completely gone for you. Nathan leaned down and kissed her softly. "Mrs. Sterling, will you have dinner with your husband tonight?" "Always," Emily said, the same answer she'd given him on their wedding night, the same answer she'd give him for the rest of their lives. As they walked toward their offices together, Emily caught their reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. They looked like they belonged together, confident, happy, completely in sync. They looked like a power couple, like people who could